And we're rolling. Welcome back to Listen Up, and today we're joined by Alex Paul. Thanks
What's
for
going
joining
on,
us,
everybody?
Thanks for being here today. I was going to start with a lot of like musical questions, but then I just saw that some people asked you, wish you a happy birthday recently.
Oh yeah, I just turned 20.
No way. When
Yeah,
was
man.
that?
July 7th.
Okay, I'm just 4 days after you.
You're
A,
close.
a, a bit more years, right? So we're not going to get into that right now, but like we're let's say we share the zodiac sign, right? We're Cancer, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
let's keep it at that. Let's not start counting the mileage, right? It's not very relevant for this podcast. So, and thanks a lot for taking the time today. I was actually going to I ask you again all the time where you're based, and since when did you start making music, and then we get started with all the questions.
Yeah, sure. I was born in Long Island, New York. I've been playing music now for, oh God, I'd say about 15 years.
Hold on, time out. When you when you're 20 years old, you cannot say oh God, right. This is just doesn't work. Like you cannot do this to
It's,
me, right? Otherwise, what is after oh God, right? You just
yeah, right?
wow, I'm 20. It's been a good 10 years. Like what should I say, right? What is after oh God? I don't know what is acceptable.
Dude, I say the same thing. I don't understand. Like, I always hear my parents like, "Oh my God, I'm 47 now." I could only imagine how they feel. It's like I'm 20. My teen years are over.
Yeah, they just started like it's. This is extremely frustrating for me at the minute. Okay, so oh God, after it would be like oh my God, I would say, and then after you just say whatever.
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
just
so
old now.
what the hell? What am I supposed to say? Anyhow, moving on.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've been doing music for like a decade, born in Long Island, and now where are you based? Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, so I'm in Boston right now for college. I study at Berklee College of Music.
Congrats, super
Thank you.
cool.
Yeah. I
Okay, I saw a lot of content in Nashville also, right?
Yeah, so I'm moving there next summer. So I'm graduating early here. I've been doing summer semesters and then I'm moving down there. I've done occasional visits to Nashville just to kind of, hunt around for some places to live, I guess, and scout out for jobs cuz it's crazy down there for sure.
I was there just like 2 months ago for the Music Business Association conference called Music Biz, and I discovered the famous Broadway street,
Oh yeah.
and I was I was just stunned. Like, what the hell is going on here? Like, it's really confusing because if you take a look just at the bars
Mhm.
and the country music, all the live music is just like, oh wow, this is amazing. But then you turn, take a look at the street, and it's like I don't know how you call it, like a six liner,
Mhm.
6 lanes,
Yeah, yeah.
which is like a highway, right? So you have a street that looks like a very cozy, like boozy slash live music street that you could find in London, but then
Yeah.
you have a highway in between. So I don't get it.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you that's where you're from, right? London?
I'm based in London and I'm French, yeah.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, Nashville, I could talk about Nashville for hours. It's such a crazy, like just awesome place, especially as a musician or I have some friends down there that just graduated, college, got their degrees and they're down there for audio visual, um television, filming. It's like it's the mecca. It's almost people are describing Nashville now like what LA was back in the day. Now, it's nowhere going to be near Hollywood in terms of, TV films and everything like that. But as far as music goes, I mean, that's the mecca right now. The business is booming and it just keeps getting crazier and crazier.
I have to agree. I was really surprised that from the airport to downtown, it's just like a 20-minute car ride.
Hmm.
So it's still like, I mean, I don't know, from the sky literally when we're going to land, it looks like a proper normal American city, I would say, right? Like where you have
Yeah.
the skyscrapers in the middle and like some kind of midtown. And then you just realize that it's actually not that big. And so it felt like everyone kind of knew each other. And there was like, oh, of course, the famous honky tonk bars. This is
Hmm.
something that I was not even aware that existed, right? So I was just like, wow, you're traveling in time right now.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a special place. I agree.
Yeah, and especially Nashville is one of those cities, and every city has like, especially I was from Long Island, so I've experienced New York City. Now I'm in Boston, and I've just kind of been in all these major cities, and I feel like every one I've been to almost has like its own character, meaning it has different like outposts. Like there's a different life in every area of the city. Nashville, you could be on Broadway and see retro signs that have been hung up since the 60s, 70s. And then, you come around by the studios and you see like beautiful modern apartment buildings. It's like a completely different vibe. And then,
Yeah.
10 minutes, 20 minutes out, you're in countryside and fields. It's just a whole different environment everywhere.
Yeah, and then you see a 4x4 limo passing
Yeah.
by, like if it's just normal, and then and that's like I think like 2 or 3 weeks after that, the Hawk Tour girl like got famous, and I don't know if it was in Nashville, but wherever it was, I just saw the clip like once
Yeah, it
or
was
twice.
Broadway.
It was Broadway.
It was Broadway,
Looked
yeah.
like it. I was
Uh-huh.
sure. I was just like I could, let's say the people I saw there, I could actually imagine a lot of them like talking this way, which is for me, I'm a countryside guy, so it really like was for me. It's like, oh, my people. Like,
Yeah, it's a
really
piece
like
of
the
home.
same. Yeah. It's really like people are really genuine and they're super straightforward, and it's like, okay, this is definitely
did
not.
you see what happened? I mean, after she got picked up from that video and just literally skyrocketed, and literally a week or two later, she was on stage with Zach Bryan.
I saw that. I
How
saw
crazy is that? I mean, I always think to myself, I'm like, what's some ridiculous thing I could say on camera to make me that big? But it's so hard. You'd think it'd be easy. It's not.
It's not. You need something kind of genuine. But for me, I was very interested on the business aspect of things, right? Because
Yeah.
when I actually checked out very quickly, like what happened, because you have these like 2 seconds of fame, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I read somewhere that people are like, oh, 20 seconds of fame, whatever. And I think they made some branding regarding like 21-second famous or something like this, right? Which is like, again, a nice twist. And so I was just like, because of the merch, because of the partnership, because of like a lot of the things happening around this moment, which again is instant virality, right? Which normally disappears in the next few hours, right? Or days. The fact that it was maintained and that it seemed very professional makes me believe that there is a management firm behind, or whatever business is behind, of people that know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, wow, that's heavy. And yes, I completely agree, and I'm pretty sure I know. So, first off, to start with like that marketing thing you were saying, I feel like anything like this, I mean, we could talk about so many like one-hit wonders and trends on social media, bands that just came out with that one song, or solo artists that came out with one song, and it's like, oh my God, the center of attention's like all on this guy. And then, 5 months later, it's like, where did he go? And then you start seeing YouTube videos. Where is Oliver Anthony? Where is the Hawk Tuah girl? You know what I mean? So, that guy, this is a great example. I'm glad you said kind of like that 20 minutes of fame or 5 months of fame. I actually just saw a post the other day from Oliver Anthony. It said, 5 months of fame. I said, this has got to be interesting. What happened to this guy? He blew up all over the States, and I think all over the world, right? I don't know. Did you guys hear about him over in London? Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, he put a message out, and I think a message could be anything from, sending emotions to a group of people, or, especially the word emotions is so important, especially when it comes down to something like music, because it's something, it's the reason why we love it. You go stand in a crowd, or you go stand, by your grandma's record player and a song starts playing. It's like you may get nostalgia, you may get, sad emotions, happy emotions. Something that Oliver Anthony put out, it made everybody go, what is this? It was like somebody just like stuck it in their face, and they were like, oh my God, like this guy's cool. And then that brings you to that marketing mystery. It's, what can I put out there that's different, that's going to strike people differently? Or, and it could strike people in so many different ways. You could make people mad and never want to interact with you again, or you can make people really happy and love you, or you can make people just really shocked and it's really cool for a short period of time, like you said, and then it falls off. So then it makes you wonder, why is that?
Yeah, it's tough. This is why, like, I think that sometimes we forget that this is entertainment, and so if you're not in the conversation, at some point you're going to vanish, because music is not self-sustainable on its own. Just if you release a masterpiece and no one is promoting it, no one will be aware it exists. Thus, no one will get entertained by it, right? Like the Hallelujah, for example, is like a perfect example, right? And so that's why, like, the business side of things interests me a lot, of course, because I'm in this business too, but also just as a consumer, because I'm just like, okay, wow, like when you have this moment of fame, which is something that, again, artists or people describing themselves are artists, because a lot of time, like, you never know, right? There is no referee to be like, you're one, you're not one, right? But artists are really looking at these moments like, it's a dirty way to get in the public attention. It's because there is no skills behind, which, to be honest, I can totally understand.
Yeah.
But the to stay in the conversation, like, so let's imagine a viral moment could start from something funny said on TV, right, on YouTube, or an amazing song, which is like two totally different type of emotion that you give to people. One is supposed to be a mind-expanding experience, music.
Yeah.
The other one is something that makes you laugh and talk about it, like for like also like 30 seconds, right? But then after, to maintain that is actually a lot of work. It's super difficult. That's why, like, what I saw, like what happened after that moment, I was actually really impressed, to be honest.
Yeah.
Every artist would like to have this kind of business acumen to be like, okay, what should happen next? So I don't know who she got connected with and who she signed with, or if she already had that kind of network around her. That would be like a lot of ifs, right? But like, props to her, because someone still has to lead the way and to steer. So
yeah, and you know what's scary too? It's like, if you're not around that climate already, because I was just talking to a professor here. His name's Jackie Santos, amazing guy, my favorite professor. He's taught me so much stuff here at Berklee, and he says it all the time. He goes, "Be ready," and I look at him and I go, "What?" I'm like, "What are you talking about, be ready?" He goes, "Be ready, because when success comes, you don't know where it's going to come from. It may come from your left, your right, your back, right in front of you. You may not even see it." And, a lot of people, they get thrown right into that success phase, and things could start to fall apart or go really well. So, I think it's really important, especially, while we're on the business topic, to really understand business, understand contracts, understand commissions, and everything that's around you as an artist in terms of business, because it is a dangerous place, especially in the music world, or even just in the realm of entertainment. I mean, we're on the topic of that Haktua girl. As far as interviews go, she was just a normal girl on Broadway, I think, right? I mean, her whole family was like, "Oh my God, like, what's going on? My daughter's famous," and and right away, like, I don't know.
With a blowjob joke, right? Which is
it was a blowjob joke.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, like
I just thought it was so funny too, because now obviously after that came out, like, I am a total nerd when it comes down to that marketing thing. So like that came out and I'm reading, I'm like, how are people feeling about this? Like, blowjob jokes, is that still cool? And then I was reading about it, and people were like, her mom is ashamed of her. They're gonna kick her out, whatever, and all this stuff. They're ashamed of their daughter. And then they brought her onto a podcast with somebody. It was a very well-known podcast. I forgot what it was. And she was like, my mom loves this. So then that's another thing with marketing. People twisting your story and pushing it all over the world could literally make your publicity just like skyrocket in like a good way. People don't care that her mom is ashamed of her. They're like, just, wow, that's crazy. Let's keep sharing this because it's interesting.
It's something you can talk about with your friends. The whole point is to stay in the discussion, right? I just saw a podcast with Bill Corgan and Rick Beato, And Beto is basically asking Bill Corgan from the Smashing Pumpkins, what does he think about TikTok and so on. And he's basically explaining, he said, like, I think the Smashing Pumpkins would have been bigger nowadays. And he's asking him why. And what is funny is that his answer is, oh, because we were staging 90% of what the public knew about us back in the days, trashing hotel rooms, feuds between other bands and stuff like this. Parallel with the Beatles and the Rolling Stones that were actually friends, but like my dad grew up thinking that they hated each other, for example, right? And the whole point is you stay in the conversation. And so people talk about you for your art, but also for the kind of crazy stuff that you're doing on the side. Because, okay, it's a BJ joke, right? But Dave Chappelle is known for jokes, right? Like the comedians are known for jokes. So what is the noble way to get in the discussions? I don't know, to be honest.
Yeah, and I mean, especially nowadays, because of social media, I always think of this, because you could either be a comic or you could be a meme. And that is such a cold thing to say, but it's so true. Like, when I turn on the TV and I see Shane Gillis, I'm like, that guy has got it together. I'm clicking on that Shane Gillis video and I'm going to watch him go nuts. You know what I mean? But the Haktua girl, it was a video that, and I think the reason why it got so big too is because of the meme recreations.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, at least me, I don't see a lot of Shane Gillis memes because his videos are already funny, and like you said, that conversation, you're staying involved with your climate. It keeps propelling you forward. Where like the Haktua girl's not a comic. She made a funny comment on a podcast, picked it up, great, good for her. But I think the people that really kept that alive were the meme creators on social media.
Yeah, I feel like this is definitely the difference between someone where you could see that a career was planned, right? And someone who just happened. And then do you have actually the business acumen to ride that wave to make something sustainable, right? So, the Kardashians, for example, I don't think it was exactly staged at the very beginning. But then you have people that have clearly a business acumen and actually manage to become someone that is relevant in the entertainment landscape. And I guess that artists are now trying to chase that, because the issue is that before, as an artist, you were the only one worthy to be in public discussions, because you had either information people or artists. And now the issue is that you could have actually everyone that would just like pop up. And then they can actually ride that wave and they start making money with merch and marketing partnerships and all these kind of things, which before you didn't have that kind of competition. So I don't know what to take a step back for a second, right? Because there was, I mean, I love this kind of conversation. I'm also a nerd for marketing and business, so
me too.
I would go for it. So right now, if we take a look at you, right, in the current music landscape, right? Oh God, it's been a decade that I've been doing this, right? You're at Berklee, famous like music institution in the States, everyone knows it. How do you see your career path at the minute? What's your mini roadmap?
Okay, so those of you who don't know me, I can give you guys some background so it's not so confusing. So yeah, I said my decade of playing music. Oh God, I started playing drums. I got my first drum kit when I was about 4 or 5 years old. I was barely able to walk. At that point, I was making noise to annoy my mom, and I took drums seriously. My parents pushed me to play drums my whole life, and through high school, I was playing in some bands. I was part of like a school rock thing, teaching students and all that stuff. And then it was like, okay, wow, I could really do I could either play music, or I could take, again, and those of you who don't know, I was a varsity golf player, and I was going to pursue golf in my career. And my dad looked at me one day, and it was literally time to make a decision. It was, do you want to do this, or do you want to play music? He goes, I know you can play music, and they are both great lives if you want it. And I said, I'm going to play music. That's what I'm going to do. And
so your choices were between golf and music?
Yeah, literally. I
so
no
you don't
idea.
like a stable life?
No, it looks like
Okay.
it looks like we're all in it together, though.
Yeah, yeah. It's just like normally people is like music or I don't know, being a doctor, like having a normal 1 to 5. Well, 1 to 5. Like doctor is like 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. the day after, right? But like you were not into the office life 9 to 5 job. You were just like, let's take two jobs with high levels of uncertainty.
Yeah,
Okay.
literally, and like, and you're literally hunting for the gig all the time. You know, my
Mhm.
dad looked at me. Those exact words you just said. He goes, "You know, you're not gonna have a 9 to 5, right?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean? I didn't think so. I was literally unsure. I said, what kind of war am I walking into? And it's true. You know, you can come last place in a pro tour and make a 6-digit paycheck for golf. But yeah,
Mhm.
you know, back to what my career path is looking like. I am here at Berklee. I'm graduating early. I'm getting a degree in live performance and a business minor. Um, and yeah, you know, my whole thing with coming to Berklee was not even just getting an education because you know that's a whole nother topic. It's like, do you need an education in music to make money and you know get a paycheck? And I think the answer is no. Berklee is great. It is one of the best. It is the best music college in the world. You know, this is the hotspot. I've had roommates from India. I've played with people from all over the world. It's truly amazing. But people ask me, it's like, okay, but why are you there? And most people will say networking, networking, and networking. And it's like, that's great. So you're going to get some contacts, cool. But the second you stop conversing with those people, the quicker they forget about you. You know, and that's the whole thing. It's music school, you get what you get out of it. You know, like if I go every day like going to classes and come home and, you know, sitting on Xbox, it's I'm not going to get anything. Yeah, I'm going to get some contacts, people I could reach out to in the next 5 years, but that's not what it's about. You know, I especially in a climate like this, I force myself to play Indian pop music, Latin music, prog metal, country music. I mean, every genre you can imagine, and it's to well round myself and make me a multi tool. So I know when I get out of here, I could say, okay, here is my portfolio of stuff that I am capable of. What route do I want to take?
Because your main jam is country music, correct?
Um, in terms of my performances, yes.
Yeah.
I do write music for other artists, and I co-write with other artists. Very on the minor side right now, and I think it'll pick up after I move. Because again, you know, I am in college, and college plays a very significant role on my time. You know,
Yeah.
especially the workload at Berklee. You don't just come here and play your instrument. You know, there is a lot. I'm in a class called conducting right now, and they're preparing me to be able to conduct a Beethoven piece to a however many people in an orchestra.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and you know that may not be something I ever do, but it's something that I can do, and that's what that is the beauty of this place. If you never got a very high education, or you're kind of lacking in some areas of music, it just it truly does give you many foundational skills to bring with you to wherever you go. And you know, I know when it's time for me to leave here, which is literally going to be in a year, I'm going to have to pick a route. But back to that kind of branch off thing, it's like where does all these opportunities come from, and how does business work? Years ago, there was routes you could take. It's like, okay, I'm going to be a manager, I'm going to be stagehand, I'm going to be a sound engineer. But nowadays, it's not like that. You could be a sound engineer and then get like 8 other job opportunities from being a sound engineer. You know, there's so many branches of
That.
work.
Yeah. Oh, that's everyone I meet in the music industry is a jack of all trades,
Yeah,
right?
and
There's no, no one has like just one job.
yeah, and that's how it has to be. You know, I when I go down to Nashville, or if I tell my mom all the time, it's like, hey, I'm gonna get a place in Nashville, but I may get a phone call and I have to go play 2 months in Panama. And if I get a good opportunity and I got to sign a contract, they're like, okay, you'll be on a 2-year term, you'll get a 5-year term, you'll get some tour opportunity, I'll give you however percent of commission. It's like, yeah, I may not play Latin music, but I can, and that's my job. Like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna go in there and I'm gonna do my job. And
I
it's
backpacked in Latin America and I actually met this Canadian guy, live performer, that got a gig for a month in close to the Acatenango volcano. And I remember like the city, I forgot the name. But yeah, he was there for a month because he had a gig and he was like, that's a pretty good gig. Like I'm making like, I think he was just making like $500 or $600 a week. But over there, you live like with $400 a month, right? So he
yeah.
was extremely happy. He was, yeah, he was having a good life.
Yeah, and that paycheck is just so crazy too. Like I have a friend, he's from Australia, and I just met him. He just came to Boston this summer. His name's Ryan Neer. And I didn't know Australia has a country scene. So, he's like talking about this and I'm like blown away. I was like, "Really?" We were talking about how gigs pay in America to Australia. And he goes, "Man," he goes, "I hated leaving Australia because I was making so much money." And I go, "What?" And I looked at him for a second. I looked at him and raised an eyebrow. I was like, "Sorry, like, you gonna call me for one of those shows?" Because like I only make like $100 at a bar gig,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
that. And it depends. Like there's so many factors into your paycheck, and one of the biggest ones is how many people do you got to pay? And it's
Yeah, yeah.
something.
But
It's
what did he mean? Just your friend. What did he mean by I'm making too much money? Because that's the
the
first time I hear that.
yeah the gigging in Australia supposedly it just pays really well. There's like a high
Okay.
demand for it, and it's genuinely like it's a business. Kind of like how in America, or I don't know how it is in London, but I know like being in a wedding band, you could literally make a living off playing weddings.
Oh yeah. Like so, a lot of artists we work with, most of them have like a cover band or
Hmm.
something like this. This is how they make most of their money. Yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah, and it's like back to that whole like branching out thing into job opportunities. I think as an artist now at my age too, I feel like everybody should have a dream. Especially if you're younger. Not many people get the opportunity to just say, "I want to do something," and then have the support from other people to just go do it. It's truly a gift to have it, and it's like I'm gonna be real with you. I love playing in bars. Um, I love playing little shows, small stages. The PA barely works. Those are the best shows. They're the greatest. There's like holes in the floor, but is that really the dream? Is it may pay the bills, but is that the dream? Now it may be for some people, but for a lot of artists, especially me as like a solo artist, I'm a multi instrumentalist. Session musician, blah blah blah, educator. It it's not my dream. I want to be on stage with hundreds of thousands of people screaming the lyrics to my music.
Hundreds of thousands. That's the big ass
That's a big
stadium.
ass, yeah, that's a big ass number. And it's true, like that's everybody's dream. Like, and it's so unrealistic. Like, yeah, hundreds of thousands of people. Like, that's crazy, but it's true. Every musician I talk to, it's like they go to bed at night, they have this song in mind, and the first thing they do when they write that song and then write it down on a notepad, they go to sleep and they picture themselves singing it on a stage.
Yeah.
And I thought that was goofy until I started songwriting, and then I wrote this like my first song, horrible tune in my opinion. It's still in the vault, haven't finished it. I was like, this song is it. Like this is gonna propel me so far. And I wrote it down on my notepad. I made a little demo for it. I was like sick. And this was a few years ago. And I went to bed at night. I literally rolled around in bed for 4 hours, just dreaming of me playing this song. And it wasn't even a big stage. It was a bar.
Beautiful.
And I was like, I said, if that's all I can get, and it's true, man. I mean, if I could play one of my songs in a bar and have the crowd sing my lyrics back just to show that, I'm kind of spreading a message to other people, that's my dream at least, you know? And I tell everybody, it's like, I don't need to get on a stage like Morgan Wallen and play in front of thousands and thousands of people, hundreds of people. As long as I could fund my toys, whether that be my truck, my dirt bikes, my fishing, and my outdoor stuff, that's great. Taking care of my wife, kids, family, whatever, that's great. That's all I could wish for. And that's the biggest thing. And I feel like being too selfish could lead in a downfall, if that makes sense. You know, it's
100% makes sense.
I feel you could have a dream, and then you could almost let selfishness kind of draw you away from the dream. You know, because
Yeah, the greed.
yeah, and you know that I think there is stepping stones to everything. You know, I mean, like I said, I've been doing this for a long time, and I'm younger. I'm not even touching the floor of like where the big dogs are in the music industry yet. But you know, I was sitting here in my bedroom one day, and I got a text message from one of my buddies in Texas. He goes, "Hey," and this is Dax Davis. I don't know if you saw that show on my social media, but he reached out to me, and he was like, "Hey, I need you to fly down here to and fly into Dallas. I'm gonna pick you up. We're gonna rehearse for an hour the night before, and then we're on stage the next night. And I don't know how much people are gonna be there. And we were opening for Braxton Keith." And I was like, "Oh, so can you send me the set list?"
100%.
Yeah,
No, it doesn't matter. You go.
Yeah, and that's usually how those gigs will strike you every time. And every time you get them, my biggest thing, the worst thing you could say in the music industry is no. In terms of gigs, there is a lot of things where you do have to stand your ground for, obviously, but especially in the business sides of things. But when it comes to like a paid thing, and it's like, and it's not going to use a valuable amount of your time, I always say yes. I said, hey, if this could help me, it's going to pay the bills, meet some people, you know, and also just hang out with my friend. I mean, Dax, he invited me down there. I'm so grateful for it, and it's not always about the business thing, and I do separate friends from business a lot. There is a line, and it's because I feel that business could just pull apart families, pull apart friend groups, pull apart everything. I mean, you see family-owned diners sometimes, and like business could just tear people apart.
Yeah,
and
it's very difficult to manage friends and money, anyways.
Oh my God, yeah, yeah, it is. And you know, and yeah. So back to what I was saying, I got called down there. It goes, you have a few weeks to learn the set list. Come down here, fly you out, whatever. I had a blast. The show was awesome, but I feel like that gives some good insight to how that life works. You know, like I was sitting here doing absolutely nothing. I think I was doing homework, and he goes, "Hey, I need you." And then I went and opened up for Braxton Keith.
Super cool.
And
by the way, when you talked about like playing in front of hundreds of thousands of people, do you have to be the main act, or are you okay to be one of the guitarists?
Oh yeah, I'll sit there and play tambourine.
Okay, so for you the most important is to be on stage to get that feeling of giving people that experience.
Yeah, and yeah, 100%. And I think, especially because I'm younger, you know, like I've been in those people's shoes. I've been at shows where I'm standing in the crowd. Like I remember I saw Megadeth. Those of you who don't know, I am a very big metal fan, and I'm a huge reggae fan. I sat in that crowd, and I just see Dave Mustaine singing Symphony of Destruction. I was like, oh my God, like this is the best thing ever, right? And you don't think of clout. You don't think of anything. You think of clout when you see Dave Mustaine singing Symphony of Destruction on Instagram. You know, like...
No, I get... Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, like when... It's the same thing when you're on stage. Like, every time I get on stage, I don't get up there and say, like, wow, I'm a rock star. Like, I am... Like, no, that's not what it's about. There's some sort of relationship you have when you get on stage with yourself and the crowd. You know, it's, a feeling you can't really describe unless you've done it.
So, I've been lucky enough to play like small gigs. One of the reasons I moved to London is music. I'm myself like an aspiring singer-songwriter, right? And I never released anything because of the way the music industry is currently set up, right? So why would I leave my current comfortable IT and finance job to go in the trenches within an ecosystem that doesn't make sense to me, right? Which is why after some time I was just like, oh, actually, what if I actually have an idea to fix it, right? But the whole point of like sharing these experiences and making a business out of it, for me, the only thing that I'm still trying to find a way to build properly is how do you make a sustainable career out of it? Because otherwise you're basically chasing your paycheck all your life. And that never ends up well, right? Like most of the artists that I've known or still know and that I will know, if you never try to forecast what will happen in the next year or two, you will constantly be that person. Like it's not even a rat race because
Yeah.
it has no, at least the rat is not even aware where he is, right? But in the music industry, like chasing the paycheck is actually very self-destructive because at some point you really don't have time to take a step back and to be like, oh, wait a minute, am I building a career here? Am I like a startup, right? Or am I just a contractor that people call whenever they want? And at some point I'm gonna have a shelf life. So what do I do next? And this is something I'm trying to bring more and more in the conversation that I have with artists and music executives, because I'm like, it should not be dirty to talk about business and money in the music industry. It's like, for example, you love being on stage. Okay, cool, but let's imagine now you have like a good network and things are going well for you, but like in 2 years, when there is another Alex coming in the landscape, right? And he's also cool. He can also play guitar. Am I suddenly threatened by it? Or is it just an ecosystem where actually we can all work together and actually can, as you said, I can forecast taking care of my family, friends, and loved ones. How do you see it yourself? How do you see that you're gonna reaching that state of this is not stable, but at least sustainable?
Well, I mean, that's a really interesting question, and there's so many ways to explain it. Back to that whole like, how do you see your pathway thing? You never know. I mean, it's good to have a general plan of what you're gonna do. Like, yeah, like I want to be a solo artist. I want to be a session musician. I want to be an educator or a ghostwriter. But
in your wildest dreams, what's in your wildest dreams? Like, what's the perfect path?
a solo artist that pays the bills. That's all.
You would be the solo artist?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do now. Because over the years, I tell everybody, it's like everybody knows me as an instrumentalist. I've played with bands now, mostly around the East Coast. Flying around. I went down to St. Joe, Texas, to play that gig. Session musicians here at Berklee. I was a session musician almost. I did more teaching over at the Loft Sound Studio in Long Island, New York. It's where like Madison Beer came out of, and a bunch of other artists. And it came to a point. It was like I want to write my own songs, and I want to see if I could do it. And I know I'm always going to have my instrumentalist powers to help me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just to help me out and pay bills, and I'll always be an instrumentalist. I'll always pick up studio gigs, always pick up tour gigs if I can. But yeah, like that was a good question. Like how do you sustain that life without almost literally burying yourself into chasing a paycheck? And I think one of the biggest things that people, and this sounds so funny, but like budgeting yourself. It's like, especially in the music world, you aren't making a lot of money at one point. Like you may get dribbles here and then. You may have a week with no work, a month with no work, and then all of a sudden you're just getting pounded with work. So,
like a contractor.
Yeah.
And you cannot clone yourself. So yeah.
Yeah, and like I may get some crazy opportunity to go play this show. I'm gonna go get paid thousands of dollars, whatever. When I go home, I'm not gonna go buy a new truck, but I'm gonna elevate the cap of what I made, if that makes sense. Like everybody, even businessmen, it's like you always hear like I can make as much money as I want. I'm a businessman. But it comes to a point where like I feel that you could have different levels of caps. It's like, or averages that you're making. It's like, okay, my salary here a year is like 150 grand, 130 grand. But there was a spike within that year where you surpassed that average salary, and it's you got like a bigger paycheck. And a lot of people in the music industry, because they don't and it sucks, it's lethal to musicians. I mean, a lot of people don't have that business savvy brain, or they just didn't really dive into it and study it enough. And that's what I'm doing now, because I'm terrified of it, to be truthful with you.
Yeah.
And
I'm really glad to hear this, because that's what everyone should feel like. But it's the same in every other industry. One of the things is that a lot of times when I'm talking to, again, people in music industry, from artists to execs, I feel like people think that all the things happening in music only happen in music. I'm like, if you're an engineer, right, and you decide to work just for Google as a permanent resource, right? You have your 9 to 5 and so on and so on. If you decide to become a contractor, you might be hot shit for a few years, but you're gonna age. That's one of the constraints of being human, right? So if you age, are you gonna still be at the top of your game? And technology, for example, just like music, evolves constantly, right? In music, you'll have what is the genre that is popping right now, what is the artist that is popping right now, and in technology you will have what is the new tech that is popping right now, what is the type of skills people are looking for on the market. And I'm trying to really tell everyone it's really the same pattern. When you decide to contract, you are constantly in the mode of chasing the next thing, and that's something that's extremely difficult. That's why a lot of people love having a 9 to 5 position. That's why a lot of former artists become music exec, not because they're just like, oh my gosh, the 9 to 5 is so much better. It's just like, yeah, it is better for your mental health, for example, or like for being able to come back home and see your kid growing up, all these kind of things. And that's why I'm trying to focus all my attention on how do you stabilize this ecosystem, the music ecosystem, not just the industry part of it. And one of the things that I've noticed in all the other industries are that it's more stable if the data that is used to share the money, to split the money pot of whatever your industry is open and it's more transparent. So like these people know where they are in the ecosystem, right? And so one of the examples is that in the music industry, in the entertainment sector, you talked about Hollywood before. Hollywood became an industry on its own because they managed to stabilize that. You have a whole production pipeline and people work 9 to 5 jobs within this industry. Whereas in music, what is very interesting for me is that a lot of artists are actually gigs themselves. You know what I mean? There's nothing that is secure. There's nothing that's gonna, again, let you know, okay, I can take a loan to buy my house. And so my whole point is that how do you maintain that? And the only solution that I found, because I love music and I would love to be able to even make music myself in this world, is to actually create a connection with your fan base. I always give the comparison with a baker, right? You can have like on Broadway Street, you would have like a bakery, right? And people would love what you're doing and you sell bread and pain au chocolat, whatever. If people love what you're doing and you have a connection with your audience, in that case, your customer base, right? You will be able to actually build your business and not be scared every day that someone is going to open a bakery shop on the other side of the street, right? Because that would be a high risk for the people doing this. It should be the same for an artist. You would be able to have a relationship with your fan base that is much deeper than what you're able to have right now, which then will give you some kind of security of like, oh, if I release something in 6 months, it's okay. People love what I'm doing right now. And when I'm going to say, hey, I have a show in Nashville, I have a show in Long Island, and I have a show in Dallas, people are going to actually come to see me because I'm able to tell them directly, which is something that you cannot do at the moment. What do you think about this?
I think that's a super powerful thing to have and shoot for. You know, like, there's an artist that I admire, and me and my roommate talk about it all the time because we find it so crazy. I don't know if you know Coulter Wall.
No.
He's like an outlaw ballad country kind of guy. It's a very like old Western sound. This guy never plays live. He's got his music out on all platforms, and he sits up at his ranch and drives cattle and ropes and does his thing every day. And I don't know if you know this, but pastures and, you know, land like that and ranches are not cheap.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah,
They're not cheap now.
Countryside.
Yeah.
So how does he pay for that?
Oh yeah. So that's what the mystery is, and it's like but Coulter Wall, everybody loves Coulter. I mean, everybody in the country music world, it's like Coulter Wall is awesome. And if that guy booked a show in Nashville, I think it would sell out. Now, why is that? There is some relationship between him and his fan base. Where, like, you know, if let's say Morgan Wallen, if Morgan Wallen just stopped touring all of a sudden and took like a 2-year break or a year break and did what you said, like, okay, let's book a show in Dallas and my fans will come to me because they love my music. There's a relationship. They love the relationship they have with me. Like, yeah, that would happen. But do you know how much other people it would probably piss off, like, really bad? And they're like, wow, he's not loyal to his fan base. Like, you know, like, there's some bands that'll be late to an album release, or they'll have something happen with their label. They'll get dropped from their label, and then they don't have a song come out for like a year and a half, 2 years, yeah, more than that sometimes. And their fan base will literally get mad. Where is the new music from so-and-so?
But that's one of my points.
Right.
In the music world, the only way to maintain that relationship is with a music release or by being in the conversation. I think there should be something in between.
I agree.
The kind of stuff like you could see on Patreon, Bandcamp, for example. Imagine, like, I don't know, how much would someone pay to have... So your demo is called Home, right? Yeah. Imagine someone would like it to be called Veronica, whatever. You do a remix and you put the name of, I don't know, someone's partner in that song because they love that song and the birthday is coming up and they want a special remix done by you. Right? By the songwriter and the performer. Mm-hmm. This would make you stay relevant in the interval between the moment that you release music, obviously, which would be like an evergreen moment, let's say, right? A big milestone. But you would still maintain that relationship without having to be a machine. You know what I mean? You can actually provide other services to your fan base, which will make you look involved, because you would actually be, and also give them something else. That's what I think should happen. Something more healthy. Like, you don't need to be like a racehorse all the time releasing music, because AI is going to take over. You know what I mean? Like, you cannot be a machine. So can you do something else that is more relatable and that actually engage your fan base in between? That's kind of like what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, and I think that's something that should definitely put into play. You know, the music industry right now is more commercialized than it's ever been, I think. You know, from what I see on media and articles I read and people I talk to, it is not only a complete war zone, but it's very industrial. You know, like, it comes to a point, and everybody says, like, this is music, it's something I love, and it should be. You know, music is an emotion. You make... The only reason why music exists, and I don't know if you know much about a lot of music history, the melody didn't even matter back in the day. Music was just a drum. It's a rhythm, and it's making you dance. You know, from blues to rock to disco, R&B, everything, there's a pulse that makes you love it. Can you dance to it? Does it make you feel sad? All these things. And, like, yeah, those are all those emotions I was talking about earlier, but how is that going to keep in touch with your fan base to a point where there's a relationship going? And there should be a line in there that separates music being your, like, industrial standard job and then sending a message to your people, because again, music is an emotion. You know, when I play, if I sit down with my guitar and I play like a robot and I just don't put any emotion to my playing or my singing, it's gonna sound like an automated voice message. There's no soul.
That's a great parallel.
It's so true. You know, like, I've had days where I'm tired and then I have to go play a show at Berklee. Like, you know, like, we have these Berklee on-campus performances throughout the semesters, and I'm tired, I'm drained, I didn't sleep the night before, I haven't slept in a week, and then I just get on stage, I'm just like, blah. And it's some of my worst playing. And that's a common thing with... Now, that's at my college. Picture being a touring musician, and then, you know, you're on the road, you're tired, you just gotta get on stage, and you're just blah. There is no emotion, there's no connection, there's no nothing, and it drives people down a hill. And, you know, like, not, like you said earlier, not everybody's meant for the music industry right now. You know, it takes a lot up here to maintain that kind of lifestyle. Like sitting in a bus, I sat on a bus from Slidell, Texas, to St. Joe for like an hour and a half, and I was like, man, I said a year in this thing is insane.
You like this is something that I tell everyone all the time. Like be careful what you see versus what you believe, right? Because smoke and mirrors, as always. All the super famous people that we know right now, Ed Sheeran, Bieber, and so on, they all have their documentary, right? The biopic, where Elton John, the Beatles, like where you realize that most of the time when you were like, oh my gosh, I want to be just like that, you realize that their life was an utter mess, right? You have like, I love Ed Sheeran, for example. He's a documentary singer-songwriter. He literally explains that for more than a year, he was in a bus. He was going all over the world, and what he was seeing from these places, most of the time, was the parking lot under the stadium. And then in the evening, of course, you go and party and do the stuff, right? And of course, you see some things that a lot of people don't see, right? But a lot of that life is very lonely. It's super difficult. What Taylor Swift is doing right now, she's a racehorse. It seems super tough. I don't want that life. Like she's doing something, okay, it's for the books, right? It's amazing. And she's now a billionaire. But I mean, as far as I'm concerned, she's working for it. Like it seems super tough. You have been touring way more than I've done, so.
Yeah, and I mean, it also depends on the band's lifestyle. It depends on their schedule. I mean, I'm not gonna name any band names, any people, for any of this thing I'm gonna tell you, just because I don't know their privacy. But you know, like I played this show, and me and the band I was playing in were so fired up. We're like, this is gonna be sick. It's gonna be great. We'll go backstage, talk, meet everybody, hang out. That band sound checked first. Now we're gonna go sound check. I figured, hey, after our sound check, let's go, you know, chat with these guys, hang out, jam a little bit backstage, and that's what you do. You know, like a lot of shows I've played, it's you go in, you roll up, you have a good time, you play. Like there's always your fair share of party, and it sounds crazy, but partying is a part of your job. Like you may have to sit down with people that you cannot stand and have a beer with them because that's your job. You know, like I've played it. I'm not afraid to say this either. A lot of people are afraid to say it. I've played in bands, and I hate the bass player. I hate the guitarist. I hate that vocalist. I can't stand it. It's like, turn that guy down. but that's my job. And once you get in that rehearsal room with those people, all of that hate and aggravation that you have with, you know, in that relationship just disappears. But, you know, like I got into that backstage room after that sound check. The entire main event band is passed out backstage. The lead singer and the bassist are passed out in the bus, not even on their bunks. They're laying across the table in their beanbag chairs, and they just had the trailer open, like they're just passed out in there, like. And we're all like, all right, so like we were going on in like 45 minutes. Like it was showtime, and you know all these guys are just slumped all over the venue. There's a few backstage, there's a few in the bus, and it's has nothing to do with the person they are. It's like, oh, they don't want to talk to us. No, they're going through it.
Exactly. This is It's
and it was weird. Me and the guitarist had talked on Instagram for like the longest time. Super awesome guy. And I got there. I get on stage. I'm like, hey, is there any, you know, anything you want me to? And this is something anybody watching, if you're opening for somebody, please do this. It'll help. You don't want to be the opening act that gets on stage and leaves your stuff all over the stage for the main event to step over. And when you're paying your dues and playing smaller shows like I am now, there's not always going to be a team that come on stage and help you tear your gear off before that stage set, you know, the next set comes on. So I always ask, it's like, hey, what do you want me to take off your stage? And it's their stage. What do you want me to take off your stage? And usually they'll be like, okay, you could take off your pedal board. I just want room so I could walk around. Okay, cool, great. I'll leave my amp in the back. I'll spin it, whatever, cool. This guy looks at me and just goes, everything. I go, all right. I'm like, I thought this guy was cool. And then after the show, you know, they had their nap and everything, and they were like the coolest dudes. We hung out at the venue after the show for like 3 hours after everybody left. And it was like, it makes you really think, like, wow, I mean, before that power nap, I mean, they were miserable. They were miserable. And
It's tough.
yeah, and it's tough and it's really sad because, like I said, having that head on your shoulders, not everybody could deal with it, and that's when substances come into play. You know, I've played shows. I walk past the other band's bus to walk in, and he's doing cocaine right off the table. I see right through the window. He's doing blow before he gets on set, and then they rush. And it was the drummer doing it, and then they rush all of the songs by like 80 beats per minute. And then that's another thing that drags bands down. So now your substance abuse is destroying your art. Is destroying your performance. And then you see guys get kicked out, or maybe you can't kick them out. You're under some contract, and you know they're a part of this thing, and you can't kick them out. And now you're stuck in that little bus for a year with band members you hate.
Yeah,
And
it's tough.
and that's a real thing. And that's, you know, back to what you were saying about how do you sustain this life and everything. That's just a little bit, you know, to tell everybody that there's a lot more than getting up on stage and playing. There's a lot to worry about. There's a lot to pay attention to, and you know, and again, I haven't been on the road for a year yet. You never know when that opportunity is going to happen. It may happen the second I leave here, or it may happen 5 years from now. But it's good to know what you're up against, because I feel like a lot of people don't have somebody to tell them, and then they get into it, they see it, and they just shut down. They're like, I don't want to do this. This isn't cool.
I feel like, again, the root cause of that, let's say for anyone, like you would be working as a banker, an accountant, an engineer, a construction worker, if you have that type of pressure, right? Like you need that paycheck, right? Otherwise you're just freaking homeless or whatever, right? The pressure is going to add up, and there's this compound effect. It's actually negative, that makes you do stupid stuff that are most of the time absolutely not sustainable. What I'm trying to understand over all these chats that I have, and also what I'm doing with Lissen, with the business, is what's the root cause of all of this. So if you take a step back, right? Imagine someone touring for a year, right? And they have to do it maybe because they had a huge paycheck, right? And they were just like, okay, a year is right? So it's your own decision, all good. Now, that's not 99.9% of the bands, right? 99.9% of the bands are touring. The schedule, the tour dates and everything is dictated by someone else that control the access to the market, right? It's because you need promotion, you need all these kind of things. I believe that if you're able to actually be in the position to organize that yourself, the same way that Chappelle can organize a show whenever he wants, staying for the Stones or whatever. When you have that luxury, right, you actually don't have any more that kind of pressure that you had before that make you do stupid stuff, right? And basically self-degrade yourself. And to do this, you need to control your distribution. Thus, you need to control your audience. You need to control the access to your audience at least, right? And that's why for me, it's like, what about we try to create an ecosystem where it's not just music. Music is the good release, but maintaining that relationship over time, right now, the only way you have is to stay in the conversation. So you need to become a content creator. Content creator, aka someone posting on socials with something that is or is not your main activity, right?
Oh, yeah.
This is means that suddenly your competition is the whole world, because you have more than 1 billion people now posting on socials. So you start from like a pool of music creators of maybe a few million people to a pool of content creators that is 1 billion people. So of course there will be a huge pace that you will have to follow, which is why in my mind I'm like, what about we try to find a way to stay engaged with our audience? We just released a new single. It worked out well. People like the mind expanding experience that this gave them, and they connected with me. How can I maintain that in other ways than just being in the news and making some viral moments and whatever?
Yeah, so there was this thing I did. This was back in high school actually, and it was till this day I am so grateful I did it. an autism. It's called EJ Autism Foundation. It runs out of Long Island, New York. And they do a fundraiser every year, and they let all these children from all ages, go perform, and if they enjoy music, like they'll get up there and do whatever they please. And it's a heartwarming thing, and it's also just it's cool. I mean, some of these kids are just unbelievably talented. I mean, I taught one of my first students ever had severe autism. The kid is unbelievable, and I learned a lot from teaching him. I mean, I remember I got in the room with him. I would be like, okay, this is what we're gonna play. Like, follow me, and I'd see if he can copy what I'm doing, and he couldn't. And I had such a hard time starting off teaching him, and then all of a sudden I wrote something on the board, and he's a very visual learner. Like, look at the board, read it, and I found out how to teach him, and he was like, oh my god. He's like, I could do this, and it was unbelievable. He just looked at it and right on the pad. I was like this kid's
and
got
that's
it
a
together.
bespoke experience. That's a bespoke experience, for example. So I have friends that have dyslexia, for example. Same. You don't teach piano to a person without dyslexia or with dyslexia the same way. They don't understand.
No.
So fully aligned. My mom worked with autistic kids all her career, so I totally understand that. But this, for example, what you just described, is something that you could just discover by having this bespoke or special relationship with someone, right? And imagine this with if you had this with all your fan base. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter if it's 10, 100, or 1,000. I really believe in the concept of 1,000 true fans, right? So the whole point is that, do they really need you to be releasing music all the time or to be in the news all the time to stay engaged with you? So now if you had the choice, for example, you have a magic wand, right? So you have event, right? A music release, a concert, that would be like the two main, right? Recorded music, live music, the two big sides of the music industry. What else could you do in between without being a content creator specifically, right? So someone that competes with everyone on a generic marketplace that is TikTok, Instagram, and so on, right? I've seen what could you do, and a lot of people have amazing creative things that they do. Like I've seen people giving the stems of the last single, a girl playing trumpet, right? The trumpet. People ask her to play a specific song with her trumpet with a specific background. It's like a big thing on Instagram. She has a big following, a very niche market. People love it. For the birthday of my wife, can you do that song and stuff? All of this doesn't require you to release a song, which is a very difficult thing, and music creation cost is not zero, right? So this is extremely difficult. And at the same time, you're not competing with people that like the Logan Paul or the Kai Cenat of this world, right? Where you are doing something that is bespoke to your audience. I think this would be way healthier.
Oh God, yeah, and there is branches of work nowadays where that is a thing, but it's not heard as much. Like the whole reason why I brought up me teaching that kid with autism is, I got into that fundraiser, I was involved, and the band I played in with high school, we were jamming on cover tunes. We were playing Green Day, a few reggae songs, a few indie rock tunes. Like we played out of my garage, and then my dad got a house. We upgraded to our own little home studio. It was cool, and we went and we played for this autism foundation. And at the time, it was like, oh, this is cool. Like, I'm going to take my band and play. We're going to hang out, have a good time. And now I look back at it, it's like that was work that was done for other people, free of cost, for a cause. And I that wasn't paid. I went in there knowing and wanting to do something for somebody else, my people that know me, and it was a really, really cool experience. So EJ Autism Foundation, thank you, that was great. But
Super cool.
And that field could be brought across everything, especially with that whole that line you're talking about between industrialization in the music industry, literally, and yourself.
100%.
Like there's I think doing things that could literally benefit the people that are following you, but still giving you a paycheck, the it's real, but it's very hard. You know, like there's foundations to raise money for people, but we are talking a paycheck. And I think nowadays with social media, I mean, you could run your own television show on Instagram Reels.
Yeah.
You know, and you don't need crazy licensing for that. You don't need to go through the whole thing. It's like, oh, I'm going to go do derivative work and take, like, I don't know, a song by Miley Cyrus and change the melody and intertwine it into like a trap beat and rap over it. Like, no, like you could literally do your own thing now that separates.
That's what's happening right now. That's what we're doing. It's the equivalent. It's like the Johnny Carson, Jimmy Fallon type of things, except we do it with, to be honest, a production cost that is pretty low. The point is that the way you're gonna monetize your audience, whether it is with with recorded music, or with live performances or merch, eventually, is if they are engaged. Or otherwise, if they are not, like how many big artists right now you see signed with God knows who, and are not able to fill up like a proper show, right?
Yeah.
Why is the digital world so different from the real world, right? So are you familiar with So Far Sound?
Oh yeah.
Okay, I used to MC for them, for example, right? I know bands that play in front of 500 people a week in London, and even more than that. And they have like absolutely no following on music platforms because they have no way like to connect these two worlds. My whole point is that we have to find a way to build platforms, which is what I'm doing right now, that enable that. Because if you build that bridge, then suddenly you have 100 fans for your new demo, right? It's home, right? Your new demo home, right? You release that and you have like, whatever, on Instagram, TikTok, it's irrelevant. It's like 100 people that say, I really like that. And then you find a way to actually engage with these people based on that. So what put you on the radar was that song. But then what else can you do to actually nurture that relationship? And then that's a proper positive compound effect. So now, for example, if from the moment like someone doesn't know you, right? And here you're single for the first time, how would you see that relationship evolving from someone that is like a casual listener, hears you for the first time and becomes a Alex Paul superfan?
Yeah, so I think before I even get into that, so like, you know, I tell everybody it's, oh, Alex, you don't have 80,000 followers on Instagram. And it's true. And I tell everybody, I said, nowadays that number on Instagram doesn't matter. It's not cool anymore. It's who follows you that's important. I would rather have 2,500 people that follow me that are important and scouting and you know, things for my job, instead of having just thousands of followers that just like my posts. Because, like, you know, does that really benefit? And the answer is no. The answer is no. And any social media marketing, you know, expert will tell you that. It's true. It doesn't matter. It's how are you going to gain that relationship? And the whole thing with me is, like, you know, I didn't have many singing videos on my account. It was all instrumentalist things, me playing like guitar solo covers. And I put out a few tastes of things I was writing, and, you know, some of them, like, you know, I'm not proud of a lot of the original things I have up on my Instagram, but I use social media like a feedback tool. It's like, I'm gonna post that song even though I don't like it, and I want to hear what people have to say, and I'll say it in my description. It's like, hey, if this sucks, tell me. You know, I want to know. It's gonna help me propel myself, and that's a healthy way to think about your work, because
100%.
Because everything in music revolves on other people's feelings towards what you do. And now, yeah, you don't have to care about those feelings, but you should definitely put them into consideration. And
comedians do this all the time. You hear them going to comedy stores, honing their craft or their sets. So it's every profession does that. No one gets stuff right the first time.
No, Bert Kreischer had this hilarious comedy idea. He goes up on the show, looks, and this is one of his biggest specials, looks at the whole crowd and goes, guys, I haven't done this joke before. If it sucks, just don't laugh and make it as awkward as possible for me. And
I love it.
And he did it, and the joke was a hit. It was funny. Everybody laughed because it's Bert Kreischer. But, you know, it's the same thing in the music industry. I've sent songs to people, and one of them is my dad. My dad is the most brutally honest guy. Most supportive, but most brutally honest guy. I sent him this song once, and he goes, dude, not your best work. I go, but you know what? Like, I will send my dad all of my songs because he's one of those guys. They're gonna be like, that doesn't really work. Now, yeah, one guy's opinion doesn't matter. You need several. But I just post these things out there, and maybe I'll get something good out of it. I get an email from an American Idol producer, and she goes, "Hey, I love your voice. I want you to audition." And I'm just sitting here. I'm like, I posted 3 videos of me singing, and I got this. So then that makes you. It makes me think. It's like being a musician. It's almost like fish in a barrel, man. I mean, like you could be sitting there just kind of cruising around in the water, and then all of a sudden, you just get pulled right into something. And that could either be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on what you're trying to do. But yeah, like I'm gonna go through that thing with American Idol, and now I'm so glad I'm on this podcast with you now, because recently I've gotten a few opportunities after and I was supposed to go cut that song home in June. I had people. Sorry, I had to just cut that part off. But I was supposed to go cut that song home in June. I had musicians from Nashville that were going to play on it, and my buddy Michael Corletto up in Maine was going to help me out, and Jonathan Wyman, also from Maine, I believe, awesome producer. He was going to produce it for me, and yeah, I hit up a few engineers. I got this engineer. We're all ready to go in, and then all of a sudden, bang! The thing had to get canceled. The session had to get canceled, which is just a reliability thing on other people. And unfortunately, I couldn't cut the song that day. And now I'm still hunting for studio time here, and yeah, so that's postponing everything I'm doing now, which I was so mad about. And then all of a sudden I get this email from American Idol, and now I got to do this, and now my focus is here, and now my focus is all over the place because I have midterm exams happening this week. And it's like, oh my God. And then that right there is when there's that line. It's like, okay, we're starting to industrialize. We're starting to get crazy.
Otherwise your time is not optimized, right? So now you have really Berklee so you still see the value in Berklee at the minute. You said the versatility of the skills that they give you really matters to you. If I understood properly, the network is also good.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I guess, surrounded by people that are as motivated as you are in music, so statistically they have more chances to be relevant in your career.
Yeah, and yeah, for sure. And also, you just meet a lot of amazing people here. I mean, and the school is, it's so diverse, it's unbelievable. I mean, you got people from all over the world, all different lifestyles, all different languages, people, and everybody here does serve a purpose, I believe. Like, they may not be the greatest guitar player, but if they could run visuals on a stage set like nobody else. And that's what I mean. Like, you won't know that until, like, you kind of get in a room with them and you work. Like, I've played with people here. I have no idea who they are. This is actually pretty funny. I was in a class the other day. There's this kid. I have no idea where he's from. I think he's from China, I think he said. He's sitting in the corner of the room. He never talks. He's just to himself, and he goes, "Okay, time for you to perform." The professor, he goes up. I've never seen such wizardy on a piano. This kid played. I was like, "Oh my God, who are you? I'm calling you next week for this gig." And that right there is what the environment is like at Berklee. I mean, there is hidden gems everywhere. You just got to dig for them, and you dig for everything. Not even just at Berklee, but I feel like in the music world, and I think that's why Berklee does have a little bit of that industry preparation to it. It teaches you how to interact with the climate as a whole. A lot of people will go from like a countryside town and then move to Nashville and be like, okay, I'm going to go play with bands, make a ton of money, but they don't know how to converse with the climate. They don't know how to socialize with the climate or put themselves in situations to get callbacks. And that's another thing that will separate, your life between what you love doing and that industrialization of music where, like, it just makes you fall off. And that's where that mystery is. Like, there has to be something in between. And I think that might be another great thing. I don't press education on anybody. And honestly, like I said before, you don't need an education in music to do music. You really don't. But I think what I've gotten out of this place is good, it comes to a point where like now I'm almost done here. Like I just want to get that diploma and get out. You know, like I feel it does come to a point where you feel that you've gotten everything out of it. You know, I mean, I've played with, oh my God, gotta be like 100 somewhat musicians from here now.
Oh,
Gotta
wow.
be. Yeah, I mean, I've played with, and that's not just country music. I mean, I've played reggae with people here, Latin music, metal. I mean, I've played with everybody here, and you know, several studio sessions. I've never done a studio session for a singer-songwriter, and I remember I went and did that, and I was like, oh, this is cool, and there's so many of those here. So I was getting studio gigs for that on and off, and things just pile up, and it puts you in a state of like fake work. It's almost like you're practicing to be a freelancing musician. Because when you're here, your job, yeah, is to pass, but why are you really here? It's, you know, you want to go and network and play with everybody you can and do what you got to do. And, you know, if you don't do that, you're not going to get anything out of it. So somebody like me that is running around and doing all these things, meeting all these people, it's not only do I have contacts for the future and friends, but I have practiced what my life is going to be like, kinda, for the next however many years.
I get it. And it is for you like a guy like John Mayer, for example, the kind of like the blueprint that you're trying to follow?
No.
Okay.
So
Who would be the blueprint?
When you mean blueprint, you mean like pathway?
In my mind, like the walking in the footstep of someone that was before you, doing something a bit similar. Because in my mind, like he was an instrumentalist at first, like a guitar player, and then he did Berklee, and then after he became a recording artist. So in my mind, I saw similarities. That's why I mentioned him, but it could be anyone else. It's like, who do you think would be like a good reference point?
For sure. John Mayer's a great one. But John Mayer, actually, he didn't even graduate from Berklee. Not many people know that. He came here for like a month, I think, or like a semester, and then he was like, you know what, I'm getting out of here. And it is a very hard thing to do because, you know, like everybody's doing the same thing, everybody sounds the same, but John had that something special. It was like, you know, there was something that made somebody look at John Mayer and say, whoa, come with me, sign this paper. And, you know, it took off from there. And, you know, it's shot in the dark, but there's also people you meet. I mean, the person that I could think of right now, and I say this, I'm sure there's a ton, but one I'm thinking off of from the top of my head is Hardy. I don't know if you know him. He's a country like metal artist.
No.
I can't even describe the genre. He's all over the place. But I remember he said something on stage. It was a song that he did with Lainey Wilson, I think. And in the background of the stage, it was like his childhood as a kid. And I was like, wow. I said, this guy that's in front of, you know, that was a few thousand people, that was his life before this all happened. And it's true. You know, like all these musicians, they're real people. They are. You know, I just thought it was really interesting. You know, you see a guy like that. He was up there in front of thousands of people at Mohegan Sun in Connecticut, that casino, and he had videos of him as a little kid playing with a beach ball with his parents, like in the living room. And to have that on stage while he's doing that, and then after the song, he goes, "That's what I was. This is what I am now because of you guys." That's like, that is so real. I mean. And now, at first, like before I saw that, I used to go to shows and you see artists all the time like, "Thank you guys. This wouldn't be a thing without you guys." And I was like, "Oh, come on, just keep playing." But it's true. I mean, it's true, and nobody will ever understand that until they're on stage in front of people that helped them get there. And it's true because you can't make it alone in the music industry. There's things. They may be literal physical things, people, places that propel you into a new step of your career. You know, it's like I said, stepping stones. I mean, I'm like on like the first step still. I mean, I'm graduating college. Like, yeah, you know, I've had paid gigs. I've had professional things happen. Like, I'm going to go through this American Idol thing. I had to go fly down to Texas and play a show, open up for a well-known artist, blah, blah, blah. I had to go fly to Florida. But, like, you know, there's a lot more that I know I'm up for that, you know, and again,
that's exciting.
You don't know when it's going to happen. It's crazy.
That's exciting. So for you, I just realized the time, so I'm not going to go with like AI and all this stuff. Just to stay a bit on your career and to like find a way to bring this home. We discussed blueprint, what you were doing, what you think you are going to be doing. So now the next steps would be like Nashville. I mean, I guess the goal is to be able to pay the bills.
Yeah.
Like to be actually independent, right? I guess that's the first one. And to do this, the milestones to get there would be American Got Talent, starting releasing some music, and moving to Nashville to see where you could actually make a living, correct?
Yeah, and using myself as an instrumentalist to market myself as a solo artist. That's my biggest thing, because I may not move to Nashville and be like that guy on the strip that's playing his originals, that's kicking. It's like he's on fire. He's gonna be the next upcoming guy. That's hard to get that stage. But if I got an opportunity, if I don't know, Luke Combs called me and was like, "Hey man, my guitarist, he's got to go home for a family emergency. He's not gonna be able to get back for another month. We got to finish the tour. Can you play guitar for us?" Yeah, I'm gonna do it. And while I'm doing that, it's just
No. Don't accept too quickly. It's like, Luke, first of all, I'm busy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I have other stuff to do. I'm not sure if I really want to play for one of the biggest stars in the world right now. So chill, right? Don't accept directly, right? Put your price up. Say like, look, I love you. We'll love you, but wait a minute, right? I'm busy right now. I want to go to McDonald's today, right? Don't accept directly. Then after, of course, you just beg him for a job.
Pretty much. But it's crazy. That stuff happens. I have a good friend, actually. Well, I consider him a good friend because he's a great dude, but he's a social media friend, and I was speaking to him one day, and then all of a sudden he just gets pulled on tour with some big artist. I'm like, dude, what? And he was a guy like me, just hanging out, doing his thing, playing shows when he can get him, playing gigs, trying to do it, and then all of a sudden it's just...
Yeah, the whole point is, how long can you wait being in that state until something meaningful happens? Because at the end of the day, you need a roof over your head and food on the table, right? So how long can you wait for this? And that's why I guess a lot of people are grinding to try to get to that point as early as possible, so that like this you can start thinking about your life, right? So otherwise you don't even have the headspace to think about an album, for example, I guess, because you need time, you need money, right?
Yeah, and I think in the midst of that time, that whole thing you were saying about having something in between, that could definitely be something that stands out for people, for sure.
That's an exercise it's just the wrong term, but like that's something that I really encourage everyone to think about. Like imagine now, for example, with your following, where do you have your biggest following? Is it on IG?
Instagram, yeah, for sure.
So if on Instagram, like the people that followed you, right, and you posted videos of yourself playing guitar, right?
Mm-hmm.
With the DMs you received, right, or the comments that you saw on your videos, like, what do you say would be, not the top three, but like one of the things that is the most requested for them, from them, right? Something I say like, oh, would you do this? Or like, did you receive some kind of request? Or did you do something that people are just like, we love this more? What would it be, for example?
Yes, so those of you who follow me, I know you follow me too, Ben, I'll post a guitar solo, like I did a Bailey Zimmerman song, I think it was Trainwreck, I posted a guitar solo, and then all of a sudden, that influenced somebody, and they were like, hey, can you do like the solo from Freebird? Or like, hey, can you do the solo from this song or this song? And it's like, yeah, and like, but then it comes to a point, it's like, okay, I'm going to post things to please one person, and then it brings you to a thought, it's like, how can I please multiple? And then I posted this song, it was a Trey Penley song, the song's called Daddy's Son, beautiful song if you've never heard it, and I sang that, and some random dude, I think he was from like Ohio, contacted me and was like, hey man, I've never heard that song before, I just checked out Trey Penley's page. He goes, man, when I watched you sing that this morning, he goes, it pulled me out of a really dark place. And I was like, that was the first time I've ever had somebody say that to me, and I was like, wow, I said, that's what it's about. That's
the
what
power
it's about.
Of music.
I got news for you, a paycheck is great. I'm not going to look at you and tell you a check that says $2,500 is a bad thing. But when you have another person reach out to you and say something like that because of your music, that is like the greatest feeling.
100%. That's something that only exists in creative arts. You don't have someone arrive. I mean, when my accountant arrive and say, hey, like for the taxes we're good this year, I have a sense of relief. But I'm not like, oh, that was a mind-expanding experience. Like versus this is what music or art in general can give to you. I agree 100%. but for example, with what you just described here, it seems like your fan base actually really enjoy seeing you playing very specific art pieces, right?
Yeah.
So songs, right? And so the point is, if you grow your following, at some point you're going to arrive at a stage where you're going to still be able to do this weekly, for example, but then you're going to have more demand than what you're able to supply, right? And normally this is when you have the monetization / engagement that actually kicks in. Because the girl with the trumpet, no joke, she doesn't have a platform where she's able to do this at the moment. Literally, that would be on OnlyFans. I'm not even joking here, or like a paid Twitch stream.
Yeah.
Because artists don't have that platform. Again, shameless plug. That's what I'm building. The whole point
Which is awesome,
that
by the way.
But my whole point is this: is that we should not be asking from you an industrial production capability. Because what you release is not a commodity. You industrialize things that are commodities, right? Cars, anything as a commodity. Art, though, is something that is supposed to give, again, mind-expanding experiences. And so normally you should not have that kind of productionalized stress. Thus, can you give something else in between? That is something that you do by default. You would play a song or another today because you want to rehearse anyways. So if you do this because like one of your fans said, hey, you know what? If I give you $1, I was going to say £1. I'm just trying to talk.
Yeah. I would have understood anyway.
1 coin. If I give you 1 coin, could you pick that song today? I know you're playing a song every day, but it's my girl's birthday tonight. What about you play that, and at the end of the video, can you say, by the way, happy birthday, Vanessa, right? Who would not give $1 for this? You know, and literally the tipping you would do. And so I think this would release so much, relieve so much pressure of artists back to be like, oh my gosh, I can't stay connected with my fans without me releasing countless singles all the time and basically being a monkey online, right?
Well, it's also, making that feeling, like I just said, how you get that feeling, that comment I got, and I was like, oh my God, that's like a heartwarming thing. Now, how could you turn that into like, not even a part as a routine, but I guess a routine that's a branch off of your job as a musician. Money destroys everything. It's a very powerful thing that could just drag people either up or really far down. And like you said, there could be something in the middle in the music industry. Another thing, like I was walking, it's crazy. It's the simplest things. I was walking through the food store one day, and a few years ago, I was posting drum pad practice routines on my Instagram. And this little kid and his mom walks up to me. He gives me his little Transformers backpack and a Sharpie. He goes, I watch your snare drum videos on Instagram. Can you sign my bag? And I was like, can I ruin your son's backpack? And she was like, yeah, sign his bag. And I'm the first person to say it here. I'm not a famous guy. I'm not well known. But that kid watched my videos, and they helped him. They were helping him learn. It was giving him something to look forward to. Whenever I posted, whatever that schedule was. 2 times, 3 times a week. And he watched him, and he saw me. I signed his bag, and he goes, man, he's like, you've really, and he's a little kid. And for him to say that to me, I'm not an older, at the time I wasn't older. I'm still not, I'm only 20. But he looked at me, he was like, that's awesome, and I'm really glad you do that. And even the mom was like, you're really helping my son.
So good. Man, I love that.
Yeah, and everybody loves that credit and that feeling when somebody says that to you. But it's also knowing that you did something for somebody else with what you love to do. That didn't take, like a harsh measure on me at all. Like, I put my phone up, I did what I love, posted it, and helped somebody else.
That's exactly my point.
Yeah.
Exactly. But the point is that when you do this for your audience, now suddenly there's a connection that gets there. Correct. Unless you're trying to, again, be like a Logan Paul or a Kai Cenat, and you're trying to appeal to the masses, right? With no due respect to the masses, we are all a part of it. It's more like to your audience specifically that I think that there is something there. Because again, Patreon grows more than $1 billion a year thanks to musicians, right? So there is money, there is demand. And I just think that at the moment, we just haven't figured out the exact good way to have fans to discover everything as an artist can do. We are connected with people again, literally from LA to Beijing, right? Where if you take the ocean, like that doesn't work my comparison, but like across all continents. I just realized, wow, I'm great at geography. Like across all continents, I just realized from LA to Beijing, there are a lot of fish, basically.
There's a lot of fish. I'm really there with geography too.
West, from LA to Beijing, if you go west, right? No, across the different continents, where, for example, like you have some guys, people just want to see them in the booth struggling where they are recording because they are doing the same thing. And again, music can be great when you consume it, when you hear it, but also when you are producing it. When you're playing guitar, you also feel great about yourself a lot of time. And so seeing an artist that already released something is actually very inspirational. So all these things are things I think that we should promote way more, and that would really boost engagement in the same way that gamers or social content creators are doing, to be honest. They're doing the exact same thing. On Twitter, you can be a super follower. On Twitch, you could tip. On YouTube, you can join the fan club and get some special merch or access to behind the scene videos. Mm-hmm. We should be able to do this with music. But yeah, like for you, for example, the example is amazing.
I agree, yeah. I mean, there is so much we could talk about with that, and that's a really huge topic. You know, I could talk about just emotion for hours, you know, because there's so many different forms of it. It could be, you know, I was sitting on the couch today with my buddy. You know, I could see him playing a lick in a weird way, and then he's got to get back to the other end of the neck to get to this riff, and giving him a hard time. I'm like, hey man, why don't you play that with your pinky? And then he's like, oh my god, he's like, those weeks of practice that was pissing me off, now I could just play it because of that. And then that makes you feel good. It's like, oh, I just helped my buddy out. And then, you know, it makes them feel good. It's like, I'm so thankful I have a buddy that could literally just look at me and be like, hey, look at this. And, you know, that's also where you could tear it down from social media. Take a step back and look at what's going on in front of you in present time. You know, because
do you see around you this social media fatigue happening? We can clearly feel it in Europe.
Oh God, yeah. And not for nothing. I mean, I try to keep the social aspects of my life on social media and my real life the same. You know, like if I'm gonna go comment on somebody's post and say, "Wow, man, this was really great," I know if I saw that guy in person, I'm gonna look at him and say, "Hey, man, that video you posted last week was really great." Not a lot of people could do that. And reading somebody's comment that says, "Wow, man, you pulled me out of a dark place," and then seeing them say it right in front of you saying, "Wow, man, you pulled me out of a really dark place," it's very, very different. And again, music revolves around emotion. Emotion can mean a lot of things. It's kind of subjective if you put it in the realm of music. But, you know, just reading a comment, there's nothing there. So, you know, pulling yourself, stepping back from what's going on your cell phone, and then looking at, you know, what you're doing to people physically and emotionally in person. That's a whole nother form of emotion that we could talk about. I mean, it goes on, and then that brings you into more ideas of how you could affect people with your music.
That's an amazing closing statement. That's for the next episode.
Let's do it.
Man, thanks
I'm ready.
a lot. Thanks a lot. Let's wrap this one up. And again, thanks a lot for your time. And let's organize let's organize the next one and to catch up when I pass by on the East Coast.
Yeah, dude, let's do it.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
So now I just